Happy Sabbath. Today is, let's see, November 26, 2016. And yeah, November. It's going really fast. But we are still still doing the signs. This is signs number 8, actually. This is, for 2 months we've been doing the signs. We're not done yet. Now we'll go back and review the signs that we did. Specifically, we ended up at the sign of the abomination, of desolation. All right, the sign of the abomination of desolation. Now, I put this up here for those who are following us live. There are some who are following us live, that if they have any questions, they can go to this website right there and type in their questions, and I will actually be able to see it right here and maybe answer them, right? And so if they want to do that, obviously when this is already finished broadcasting, they won't be able to do that. But right now, if there anybody's watching and have questions, we can answer them. All right. Okay. The sign of the abomination of desolation. Do you remember where this sign is given in the Bible? It is written, yeah, just to review, it's actually given in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. What is the sign of the abomination of desolation, right? The sign of the abomination of desolation is when Jerusalem is compassed with armies, standing in the holy place, right? Standing on the holy place, standing where it ought not to be, right? So the abomination of desolation is the armies of Rome encompassing Jerusalem, standing in the holy place where it ought not to be, right? That's that's what Jesus says the abomination of desolation is, right? We take these three parallel verses, okay? This is a review from last week, all right? Okay, so what is the abomination of desolation? What is the abomination of desolation? And we have it because Ellen White writes it down for us. The abomination of desolation is the idolatrous standards of the Romans, all right? Okay, so when the idolatrous standards of Rome is actually in the church, right? Right? Jerusalem is the church, right? All right, specifically in the holy place, that's the church. But when you add the fact that it is also the armies of Rome, meaning there's an enforcement of the standards of Rome inside the church, right? The idolatrous standards. Now, the one that we always remember and we always identify with the idolatrous standards of Rome is Sunday law, right? But is it just Sunday law? It's much more than Sunday law. The idolatrous standards of Rome, we'll go into this a little bit more, right? Because we can see that this has been building up for a long time. Okay, all right. Now, when the idolatrous standards of Rome is set up in the church, what has to happen to the church first for the idolatrous standards to be set up there? The church has to fall away first, right? It has to fall away first. In other words, it has to what? Compromise. Because this is not the Sunday law yet. There's no law that say Roman standards has to be in the what? In the church. This is talking about in the time of Paul, but also in our time. Because the standards of Rome has to be come in through compromise first. So the church has to compromise. And which church of the 7 churches is the church that compromises? Pergamos, right? Ephesus, followed by Smyrna, is the one that being persecuted. And then when there's no more persecution, what happens? Then they compromise, right? Yes. Because when they're being persecuted, they're pure, right? That's Smyrna. But when persecution stops, then the Roman standards start coming in. And who brings it in? Who's the emperor that brings it in? Constantine, right? Constantine was baptized 312. And then he makes up a Sunday law on 321, right? Easy. All right. He was baptized. All right. He was nominally baptized on 312. And then he makes a Sunday law in 321. All right. Okay. And then this is a compromise. When did the church, when was the man of sin revealed that starting to magnify himself above every god, speaking marvelous things, who oppose and exalt himself, that he is worshipped and he sitteth in the temple of God, saying that he is God? When does that happen? 538. What happens in 538 is when they start persecuting, because now the papacy has no competition anymore. Paganism cannot, paganism has been taken away, right? The paganism no longer can persecute, because now it's the papacy that now persecutes, right? And that's Thyatira. But for the man of sin to be revealed, the papacy to be revealed as the one that can persecute God's people, he has to be revealed as the corrector of heretics. And we will see that he will be the corrector of heretics. The emperor of Byzantine, Justinian, calls him now the corrector of heretics. And from then on, anybody that is considered heretic can be persecuted, right? Yeah. Okay. So that's Thyatira, Pergamos and Thyatira. So is Pergamos and Thyatira a church that is going to be repeated in the end time? Yes. Right? We always say, okay, the church is Laodicea. The condition is Laodicea. But the conditions of Pergamos and the conditions of Thyatira will be repeated again in the end time. Okay? All right. It's a compromise. The compromise is with the nominal conversion of Constantine. Then eventually all the doctrines of Rome will come in, right? This is from Great Controversy. Right? Through the compromise of Constantine. Okay? And then the man of sin is revealed, right? So Constantine here, and then Justinian here. This is the... okay, we'll go into that. We'll go into detail here. This is from, we ended up here last week. This is from the book of, the book of J.N. Andrews, History of the Sabbath and the First Day, right? In the year 538, the Third Council of Orleans decreed that labor in the country on Sunday is not prohibited. Is now prohibited. You cannot labor in the country anymore in 538. It becomes law that you cannot work on Sunday. Right? This is where we say, this is when the man of sin is now revealed, because now it's a law that you cannot work on Sunday. Right? 538. And that's the Council of Orleans. Okay? Council of Orleans. All right? Okay. This is the History of the Sabbath and the First Day of the Week by J.N. Andrews. Right? At Chalons, the city of Burgundy, which is France, there was a provincial synod which confirmed what had been done in the Third Council of Orleans. Right? Third Council of Orleans was given in 538. Right? 538, about the observation of the Lord's Day. Now they're talking about Sunday. namely that none should plow or reap or do any other thing belonging to the husbandry, meaning the in the garden, on pain of censures of the church, which was the more minded, because backed with secular power. See, it's backed with secular power, and by an edict menacing such as offended herein, who if bondmen were to be soundly beaten, by if freed had 3 admonitions, and then if faulty lost the 3rd part of their patrimony. Oh boy, they lose their money and their wealth, and if still obstinate were made slaves for the future. Wow. So if you work on Sunday, you are punished by civil law. And in the first year of Aringius, about the time of Pope Agatho, therefore sat the 12th Council of Toledo. Now this is in Spain, in 681, where the Jews were forbidden to keep their own festivals. Now, so first they say you cannot work on Sunday, and then after that, you cannot worship on Sabbath. So this is now by law. So you see a progression. So it's first it's exalted slowly. You lift up Sabbath and Sunday, and eventually on Sunday you cannot work, and then after that, on Sabbath you cannot worship, and it's by law. Finally, this is on 681. Okay. Now we're going to put this on a line, but it's a vertical line. All right, we're going to put it on a vertical line. This is when Rome is divided into 2, right? Western Rome and Eastern Rome, right? Right, Western Rome. Okay. Okay. The Christian Constantine became Christian in 312. Okay. 312. Let me see. I'm going to make my notes a little bit bigger so I can read it here. Okay. 312, Constantine became Christian. He became a nominal Christian, right? He was baptized, and his whole army was baptized all at the same time. It's Constantine 1. That's when Pergamus, right? Pergamus, when this is when the Christian church was compromising, right? Compromising. The Sunday law was on 321, right? What happened 4 years after the Sunday law? That is the Council of Nicaea. The Council of Nicaea in 325. What did they decide at the Council of Nicaea? Easter. The first thing is Easter, right? Right. They said that we cannot keep the Jewish Passover. No, we can't keep the Jewish Passover, because the Jewish Passover is on the 14th day of the first month of the Jewish calendar. The Catholics say, no, we can't keep that. We have to keep Easter as the first day of the first Sunday after the vernal equinox. So they base it on the moon. When the vernal equinox, the first Sunday after that, that's Easter, right? So they change it. So Easter was established during the Council of Nicaea. What else did they also establish at the Council of Nicaea? And this is very, very important. The consubstantiality of the nature of Jesus. Okay, what does that mean? This is a big word. They want to hide behind this big word. Consubstantiality of... No, that's transubstantiality. No, what's transubstantiality? When the Eucharist actually turns into real blood and flesh, right? During the communion service, it turns into blood and flesh. What about the consubstantiality of Christ?
That's just, it's a symbol.
Okay, I'm going to read this to you. This is the Council of Nicaea. All right. Hmm?
When was the Council of Trent?
That's a lot later. That's a lot later. But this is 325. All right. Okay. All right. It basically says that the substance of Jesus is the same substance as the Father. Right? The substance of Jesus is the same substance of the Father. And that Jesus was not created, which is true. Jesus is not created. But the other thing is that Jesus is co-eternal and co-equal with the Father. What does co-eternal and co-equal mean? That Jesus, the meaning of begotten, if Jesus is co-eternal with the Father, is there a time when Jesus actually was begotten out of the Father?
No.
If he's co-eternal, he
Came together like at the same time.
there has been no beginning whatsoever for Jesus. Can Jesus actually be begotten out of the Father literally? No, because so in other words, Jesus is really not the real Son of God. Physically is not the real Son of God. But Jesus, now the Catholics say this, Jesus is eternally begotten. I don't know what that means. He says Jesus is eternally begotten. Continually generated somehow out of the Father. And when it says Jesus is co-equal, what does it mean that Jesus is co-equal with the Father?
In time.
No, not the time. Jesus is not subservient to the Father. Right? If Jesus is co-equal to the Father, is Jesus subservient to the Father? Right?
Which is not biblical.
No, yeah. In the Bible, Jesus is subservient all the way to the Father. I am subservient to the will of the Father, right? But if he's co-equal, he's not subservient to the Father. Right? In other words, the Son of God is only a title.
It's only
A title. So there's three gods. God the Son, God the Father, and God the Holy Spirit. And these are co-equal and co-eternal. Now that is the Trinity. So the Trinity started by the Catholics in 325. So this is very important. I don't know how, this is terrible because now nobody wants to know about this. Nobody wants to know this. This is the beginning of the Trinity starts at Nicaea, and the beginning of Easter starts at Nicaea. And that's associated with the Pergamus. That's the what? That's the falling away. You see? That's the compromise. Okay, when you compromise and you make a national apostasy, what has to happen? What happens after a national apostasy? National ruin. So ruin. So national ruin is not only that they split. Rome, Constantine moved his capital to Constantinople. So Rome is right here. Constantinople is right here, somewhere here. So he moved his capital here. Okay? Right? And then he had 3 sons. And this is the beginning of the Byzantine Empire. And that's why when they said Islam attacks and kills 1/3 of men, this is 1/3 of men right here. This is because it's divided into 3. Now it's Constantine, Constantius, and Constans. So the Byzantine Empire is 3 parts. So 1/3 of men is wiped out. You remember, Daniel 11, right? Daniel 11. Okay, right. But what happens during this time after national apostasy comes national ruin? Why is it ruined? Why is Rome ruined? Because it's constantly being attacked by the trumpets, the 4 trumpets, the Goths, the Vandals, the Huns, and the Heruli. And these are the 4 trumpets. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the trumpet power attacks after the national apostasy, leading to national ruin, because after this attack is divided into 10 toes, right? It's divided into 10 toes, right? Okay. But now these 10 toes will start. These 10 toes are the 10 kingdoms of Europe, right? 10 kingdoms of Europe. But what happens to them? They become Catholic, starting with France. France in 496 becomes Catholic, right? And then they one by one become Catholic, and what do? They give their army to who? To the Pope, right? They give their army to the Pope, starting with Clovis and ending up with Arthur in England, right? And Vitalian also rebels. Vitalian rebels against Anastasius, which is the emperor of Byzantine here. This is 508, right? This is when they are rebelling. The paganism is starting to be taken away, because now papacy is starting to rise up. But paganism is starting to be taken away. This is the understanding of the daily. Daily is taken away in 508, right? Because now the armies of paganism is given to the papacy. Papacy, right? We did this a long time ago, just to review. As a matter of fact, this is a slide that I had from, when we were studying Revelation, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Revelation 10. Yeah, I used this in Daniel, but also when we were studying Revelation. Okay, all right. Now, the problem is that when they were given the powers of the pagans, the pagans became Catholic. The papacy needed the military power, because there was a group of nations that were they need to pluck out, and these are the three the Heruli, Vandals, and Ostrogoths. These are the three horns that they had to pluck out, right? Why did they have to pluck out these three horns? The Heruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths. Because they were Arians. And what was wrong with the Arians? They were heretics. And why were they considered heretics? Because they were non-Trinitarians. They don't believe in the Trinity. So they were Arians, because they were non-Trinity Arians, right? So they were plucked out. So Justinian gave Pope John II the title of Corrector of Heretics in 533. So he can consider these non-Trinitarian Arians heretics, and they can be plucked out. So these three countries were plucked out, and the general is General Belisarius, right? So 538 also is when the last of them, the Ostrogoths, were plucked out, and that's also the Council of Orleans, because now the man of sin can be revealed. Now he can say, with the Council of Orleans, now there's a law that says you cannot work on Sunday, right? And on 681, there's the Council of Toledo. So now it says you cannot worship on Sabbath. So you cannot work on Sunday, and then followed by you cannot work on Sabbath, 681, right? And this is the beginning of the 1260, because 538 until 1798 is the 1260. And what happens during the 1260 is when the woman has to run to the wilderness, right? Yeah. So when the man of sin is revealed, what do? You have to run to the wilderness, right? So when the abomination of desolation stands in the most holy place, what do you have to do? Run to the mountain. Run to the mountain, right? So this is the abomination of desolation. Is the man of sin is revealed right here, right? Okay. But the Sunday law starts here. So the Sunday law is a progression. It's a progression all the way until here in 681, when it says that you cannot worship on Sabbath by law. Okay. And this is Thyatira. Thyatira. So this is Thyatira, starts at 538. So when the papacy will have supreme power to constantly persecute God's people. Before this, it was paganism that had the power to, right? So, but paganism was taken away in 508, right? Okay, just to review. Now this should be all review, right? It should be all review. Okay, now we're gonna put this on a different line now. We're gonna put it on a horizontal line now. Okay, all right. This is very important. To me, it is very important because for me to understand, I have to see these things visually, right? I have to see it visually. And hopefully it'll be helpful to you too, because to be able to see it visually, you'll be able to understand it. Because why? You're gonna have to teach this to somebody else, right? It's very important. Okay, so 312 is the falling away, right? This is the baptism of Constantine. And then 321 is the Sunday law. And the church becomes Pergamus, right? Church becomes Pergamus. And here is the Trinity, Council of Nicaea, and Easter, 325. Okay? All right. Then what happens? Then the trumpet powers hits. The trumpet powers hits. Goths, Vandals, right? They all come and they destroy Rome, right? Trumpet powers. Okay? Then to deal with the trumpet power, they said, well, a minute, we can't deal with the trumpet power ourselves. We need to be a corrector of heretics for these people. These heretics, we need a corrector of heretics to deal with these trumpet powers. All right? And that's when the revelation of the man of sin, to be able to pluck out the heretics. The heretics are the ones who don't believe, right, in the idolatrous standards of Rome, right? So they made another Sunday law at the Council of Orleans, and now they're Thyatira now, right? And 681, now they outlaw Sabbath now at the Council of Toledo, right? Okay, so we put this on a line like this. And that's the beginning of the 1260, when they have to run to the wilderness until 1798, right? Okay? All right, we got this. Now we have to compare this with the time of Jesus. This is when. When is the falling away? Who is the disciple that falls away? It's Judas. All right, I have a picture here. This is the 12 of them at the table at the Last Supper, right? And he falls away right there. That's a very small picture of him, but he's falling away. What did he do? He left at midnight, right? He leaves at midnight. So the falling away happens at midnight. So when you say the falling away starts at here, the falling away happens at midnight. All right? So for the man of sin to be revealed, who's the man of sin that is revealed at the time of Jesus? Barabbas. Right? What does Barabbas mean? The son, the fake son of the son of father. Abbas is father. The fake son of the father. Right? He's the son of perdition. Right? The man of sin is revealed. So Barabbas was revealed here. So when the Jews was destroyed, was it because they were keeping Sunday? No, they were not keeping Sunday. They kept Sabbath. But why were they destroyed? Because they chose the wrong son of the Father. They chose Barabbas rather than choosing Jesus. They chose the man of sin, the son of perdition, Barabbas. They chose Barabbas. So this is the following of Judas and the revelation of the man of sin right here, right? Because they had so the people had to choose. Are you going to choose Jesus or are you going to choose the Barabbas? Okay, right there. So the sign of the abomination of desolation. What happens when you hear and you understand that the sign of the abomination of desolation is being given? What do you have to do? You have to run to the mountains right away or in a little time? Right away. You have to right away, you have to run. Depending what your response is will determine whether you are going to be destroyed in the city or are you going to be escaped to the mountains, to the safety of the mountains, right? Right. Okay. Right. 2 days before the Passover, when Christ had for the last time departed from the temple, after denouncing the hypocrisy of the Jewish rulers, he again went out. So he had to leave the temple, right? Remember, when the last time that he went to the temple, he never went back after this. Right? He never went back. He denounced the hypocrisy of the Jewish rulers. He again went out with his disciples to the Mount of Olives and seated himself with them upon a grassy slope overlooking the city. Once more he gazed upon its walls, its towers and palaces. Once more he beheld the temple in its dazzling splendor, a diadem of beauty crowning the sacred mount. Christ gave his disciples a sign, right? A sign of the ruin to come on Jerusalem. And he told them how to escape, right? Right. When Jerusalem is encompassed by armies with abomination of desolation, right? Standing where it ought not to be. This warning was to be given, to be heeded 40 years after, at the destruction of Jerusalem. The Christians obeyed the warning, and not a Christian perished in the fall of the city. 40 years afterwards, right? When you understand the abomination of desolation, you have to immediately run to the mountain, because otherwise you're going to perish in the destruction of Jerusalem. Right? At the time of the siege, now when Jerusalem was sieged, it was sieged how many times? No, at the time of after Jesus. This is the time of after the time of Jesus in 70 A.D. How many times was it sieged? 2 times. 2 times. The first siege was by Cestius, and the second was with Titus. Okay, at the time of the siege, this was the first siege. The Jews were assembled at Jerusalem to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay. This is kind of important. Well, this is actually important. And thus the Christians throughout the land were able to make their escape unmolested. Without a delay, they fled to a place in safety, the city of Pella, in the land of Perea beyond Jordan. Right? It was during the Feast of Tabernacles. Right? You have to know, when is the Feast of Tabernacles? Okay, we'll go over that. Right? This is 66 A.D. Right? Terrible were the calamities that fell upon Jerusalem when the siege was resumed by Titus. So Cestius came here, and then he fled for some reason, and then Titus came here, 70, right? And the city was invested when? At the time of Passover. Okay. Now, is this important for some reason? This is Feast of Tabernacles, and this is Passover. So from 66 to 70, we look at it. This is the 15th day of the 7th month. That's the Feast of Tabernacles. And the Passover, when is Passover? The 14th day of the first month, right? So this is Cestius come here. 14th day of the first month is Passover, right? That's right in the beginning there. Okay, that's this is the bust of Titus. From here to here is how many years? 3.5. Exactly 3.5 years, which is how many days? 1260. So there's the 1260. And that 1260 is a symbol of when you have to run to the wilderness, right? Because when the man of sin is revealed, they have to run to this wilderness for 1260 years. Here, when the man of sin is revealed, they have to run to the wilderness, right? There's another 1260 right here. So this is where you know these symbols are joined together, okay? And then the fall of, when the stones are flattened and not one standing on each other, is the destruction of Jerusalem is on the 9th day of Av, the 9th of Av, which is the 9th day of the 5th month, right? So we're talking about the siege right here, and this is the destruction. From the siege to the siege is 1260. All right. And you have to escape. When you see this, you have to escape right away. You can't wait until this time here. No, you can't. Okay. We'll put, here is the calendar, Jewish calendar. This is the first month. 14th day of the first month is Passover. The morrow after the 7 weeks is the Pentecost, because that's 50 days after, okay, 50 days after Passover, right? The morrow after the 7th week. Okay, the 7th week will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The morrow after the 7th week is this here. So this is Pentecost, because that's 7 times 7 is 49, plus 1 is 50, right? Just like Shemitah and the Jubilee. All right. So this is the festival of weeks. This is the Pentecost is called the festival of weeks because it's 7 weeks. The morrow after the 7 weeks, the festival of weeks. This is the festival of the blowing of trumpets. And the 10th day of the 7th month is the Day of Atonement, right? When you have that, the ram is blessed and goes to the desert, right? The Day of Atonement. And this is the Feast of Tabernacles. So the 15th day of the 7th month. From the 15th day of the 7th month to the Passover, that's 6 months. This is exactly 6 months. So when you have 3 plus 6 is 3.5 years. And that's why it's very important, because it's the 1260, and that's a symbol of running away to the wilderness, right?
Yeah, and it was also 1260 years when they were in the wilderness.
That's right. Running away to the wilderness is 1260. So 1260 is a sign of the wilderness. But there's also how many days was Jesus in the wilderness? 40 days. So 40 is a sign of wilderness, right? But also 70 is a sign of wilderness. Remember we did that before? The sign when they were in 70 years in Babylon, that's like them in the wilderness. So 40, 70, 1260, they're all the same. They're all wildernesses, all right? Okay. Okay, this is from the War of the Jews by Josephus. Here is a picture of it. The day the temple was destroyed was the 9th of Av, the 9th of the 5th month. It was the conclusion of the Sabbath, right there. So they were keeping Sabbath, but they were destroyed because they knew these people they're worshiping. They're not going to fight back. We can attack them on the Sabbath. So the Jews still kept Sabbath, but they were destroyed. You know, this is very, very crucial because this is going to happen in the end time. You think that you're going to be safe because you're going to keep the Sabbath, but you're still going to be destroyed. Why? But you keep the rest of the idolater standards of Rome. That's the problem. And you choose the wrong Son of God. Instead, you choose Barabbas. Even though you still go to church on Sabbath. Wow. The priests and Levites stood on the platform and continued to sing and did not cease until the enemy entered and subdued them. Wow. So Titus returned in. Okay. According to it was the 10th day of the month Los, which is Av, upon which it was formerly burnt by the king of Babylon. Now we know that the king of Babylon, according to the Bible, burnt it on the 9th day of Av. But here it says it was the 10th day of Av. What happened is they say, oh, well, you know what? They started burning on the 9th. And eventually it was completely burnt on the 10th. So when the Jews now these days, the modern Jews now, when they are going to have a festival, they're going to do it on Tish B'Av, the 9th of Av. Because on the 9th of Av is when the temple was burnt at the time of Zedekiah, and also at the time of in 70 AD. So it's basically the same day, on the same day. All right. Okay. All right. Now we're gonna put more lines together. This is the time of Zedekiah. Right? The time of Zedekiah. At the time of Zedekiah, there was a beginning of the siege. The siege started here. But what happened to the siege? It stopped. Why? Because Pharaoh came, attacked. Pharaoh came in response to Zedekiah asking for help. So the Babylonians, they had to go fight Pharaoh. And what happened? Jeremiah was able to escape, but Jeremiah was captured and he was taken back, right? But during that time, the Jews were supposed to release their slaves. Because why? This is a Shemitah year. Yeah, it's a Shemitah year. Every 7 years you have to release your slaves. They released it and they took back the slaves again. So they broke the Sabbath rest because that's a Sabbath rest covenant. They broke the Sabbath rest. And then Pharaoh was broken here. You know, remember when we were doing all this? On the 7th day of the first month, Pharaoh was broken. So Pharaoh was broken, and now they are able to come back and resume the siege. So they resumed the siege, and the wall was breached right here. And then who comes? Nebuzaradan comes. Nebuzaradan comes, and then he burns the temple on the 10th day. So it's not the 9th, the 10th day of Av. Right? This was Zedekiah's. The time of Zedekiah, there was a siege. The siege was stopped, and the siege was resumed, right here, and the temple was burned. Compare that to Cestius and Titus, right? Cestius comes, and then, and he goes away, and he stops the siege, and then the people can run away, right? And then Titus comes. Titus comes at this time, and then the temple was destroyed here, burned. Okay. This here, the beginning of the siege, is the end of the 390 and the 40 time prophecy, right? In Ezekiel 4. Because that's the beginning of the what? Destruction? No, destruction here. It's the beginning of the siege. So that points to the siege right there. All right? Okay. From here is 18 months to the time when the wall is breached. This is when Cestius comes in, and this is when Titus comes in, and the temple is broken. Right? This is 1260, 3.5 years. For them here, the what is actually a year and a half, but here is 3.5 years. Okay. This is at the Feast of Tabernacles. This is at Passover. Okay. So Cestius lines up with the beginning of the siege here, and Titus lines up with the resumption of the siege. Okay. All right. Boy, many lines to put together. You see that this is telling us something. Okay. This is the end of one generation. Jesus says that after one generation, within one generation, from the time of the budding of the leaves, and the temple will be destroyed. Not one stone will be on top of the other. So this is the end of one generation right here. Right? Right at the when the temple is destroyed. Okay. All right. Yeah. This is a camp meeting. All right. When is the Roman standards? When is the Roman standards enforced in the church? And yeah, this is the quotation from Ellen White, March 18, 1884. Right. The Lord has a controversy with his professed people in these last days. In the controversy, men in responsible positions will take a course directly opposite to that pursued by Nehemiah. They will not only ignore and despise the Sabbath themselves, but they try to keep it from others by burying it underneath a rubbish of custom and tradition. Oh, there you go. Custom and tradition become lifted up, and the Sabbath is put down. In churches and in large gatherings in open air, and this is why I chose this slide. In camp meetings, ministers will urge upon the people the necessity of keeping the first day of the week. This is the government actually enforcing Sabbath tradition, Roman standards? No. The church, the leaders of the church is enforcing, right? Still, this is the same concept. This is the armies of Rome, right? So when you see this, you know that the Abomination of Desolation is standing in the holy place already, right?
It's amazing to
Yeah.
Ellen White was able to light that flame.
See, the thing about this, does this happen at Sunday law? This happens before the Sunday law. Because at the Sunday law, there's a government that will tell you that you cannot keep the Sabbath and you have to keep Sunday. This, you don't have to have the government yet. But the church leaders will already tell you before Sunday that you have to keep the Roman idolatrous standard. This happens before, right? Yeah. So what kind of idolatrous standards has been creeping into the church already of Rome? What about Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a Roman idolatrous standard?
Yeah.
Or Easter? Oh no, we know Easter. It was established at Nicaea.
Thanksgiving. Yes.
What about the sunrise worships on Sunday?
Oh,
What about Halloween? Is it coming to the church?
Oh yeah, in AD, the president was encouraging the church people to observe Halloween. So
Yeah.
that is a protocol now. But
Now the one that we already see. What about the Eucharist? Is the Eucharist a Roman standard? Where we have to walk and be given the Eucharist?
and they're talking about the two judges that Trump will appoint. And together with that, they talk about the flipping the
Right.
Roe
Roe
and
v.
Wade.
Wade.
And the separation of the church and state.
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now the other thing that I just realized, what about the gladiator games? The gladiator games, when you look at it, historically, is done to appease the gods from giving natural disasters. Natural disasters is because the gods are angry. So we have to have gladiator games. Now that's Roman, right? That's pagan. Are we exalting gladiator games in America now? Are we sponsoring them? Is the Abomination of Desolation coming into the what?
Yeah, look at the hospital. They want you to tickets.
The gladiator, we see the Abomination of Desolation. The compromise has been going on for a long time, and the man of sin will be revealed. And when the man of sin is revealed, we know that we have to run away right away, right? Yeah.
I really firmly believe it. I could see it coming.
Yeah. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. Okay. All right. Okay. Now we will add this. This is a little bit more. I'm adding more. This is going to look much more populated now. We've done this. This is Cestius and this is Titus, right?
Yeah.
This is the falling away. Falling away. And this is what happens is the trumpet power is going to come and destroy and attack. So you have to have a corrector of heretics to deal with the trumpet powers, and that's why you have to have a Sunday law, right? Because the trumpet power is attacking. We have to have a corrector of heretics that will establish the Sunday law, and that's the revelation of the man of sin right here. So that's a Sunday law right there. Okay, and then you have to pluck out those who don't believe in the Roman standards. All right. Okay, that's 1798. That's 1260, and we know that the falling away of Judas happens at midnight. All right. So when we put all these symbols in our line, this is our line right here. This is Cestius. This is in the time of Constantine and Justinian. The trumpet power will come here, right? There's going to be trumpet power. Except the trumpet power now is who? It's Islam. We know the trumpet power is Islam, right? Because trumpet power is Islam. And then what's going to happen to those? The trumpet power is considered a heretic now, right? And you have to pluck out the heretics, which is Islam. So you have to have a corrector of heretics, which is set up right at this time. And that's at midnight cry, right? Is that at midnight cry? So the man of desolation, the abomination of desolation is going to be set up right here, okay? Right? But there has to be a following away first here. But remember, there's also a Sunday law here. Why is there's a Sunday law here? The Sunday law here. When we studied, we realized this is the national Sunday law here, but there's going to be a Sunday law here. Right. It is progressive, right? Because here, the Sunday laws that are given at the midnight cry, it is given, but it's not enforced by law. Over here, it's enforced by law. So the Sunday laws start here, but not enforced by law yet, but then it's enforced by law. All right? And then Pharaoh comes here, right? Remember? Pharaoh comes, this is the time of Zedekiah. Now we put Zedekiah's line. Put the line upon line here. This is multiple lines, all right? We're just using the symbols. Pharaoh attacks here, right? And then they disobey the covenant. They disobey the covenant right here. The Sabbath covenant is disobeyed right here. All right. Then we have to put what about the plagues? Now we're putting the plagues of Egypt together, right? We're putting all line upon line upon line upon line, right? Now the plagues of Egypt, the first three, 4, 5, and 6 happens between midnight and midnight cry. 4, 5, and 6. We'll just concentrate on the last 4. 7, 8, 9, and 10. Here are the 4 winds, right? That's going to happen. The 4 winds that is going to hit America. But this 4 winds also hits Jerusalem, right? And those 4 winds is the 4 last plagues, because it happens between midnight cry and Sunday law. And what is that? Hail. What does hail do to the crops? Destroy all the crops. So what is going to happen? There's going to be a famine, right? After the man of sin is revealed here, abomination of desolation, there's going to be a famine. The thing about it is, does this famine hit Goshen? It does not hit Goshen, right? The 4th, 5th, and 6th plague is right here, and it does not hit Goshen. So where do we have to be before, we know all of this, we have to be in Goshen already, right? Before the 4th, 5th, and 6th. The problem is that those people who are still in Jerusalem, if they don't understand this sign, abomination of desolation, and they don't escape right here when Pharaoh attacks and the Cestius attacks and the siege is backed off, they're going to be caught in Jerusalem. And there's going to be big famine. After the famine, what hits? No, it's not swamp. It's the locusts. And what are the locusts? Islam is attacking. Islam attacks. So now they have to deal with Islam, right? And you got to be able to run away to the mountains at that time. Those who are in the cities this is their chance to run away. There's still a chance for them, but we're the ones that have to prepare a place for them to run to, right? Okay, and then there's a day of darkness. Why is there a darkness? Because the sun worship, right? Sun worship here, they're worshiping the sun now, right? That's a day of darkness. And then the firstborn of Pharaoh is given the deadly wound, right? There's the son of perdition is actually now being remembered, right? Yeah. So we put this, and then there's a siege right here. There's also a siege right here. There's also a siege right here, right? This is the siege of Jehoiakim during the time of Daniel. This is the siege of Jehoiachin, and this is the siege of Zedekiah right here, right? Okay. If there's a siege right here, which siege is that? Also, the siege of Constantinople in 1449. The siege of Constantinople in 1449 was Muhammad II, right? He wanted to destroy Constantinople. And what was his tactic at that time that he suddenly woke up in the middle of the night, at midnight, he woke up and says, I want to hire me a big cannon maker. And this cannon maker will destroy the walls of Constantine. There's a wall of Constantine that is broken right here. So Islam will hire a bomb maker. And this cannon here is so new, it has never been used before, and is very unstable. So Islam is going to hire a bomb maker that will attack and destroy America's economy such that there's a big famine, right? And because of that, now they say, okay, we got to correct these heretics of this Islam. We got to pluck them out and establish start the Sunday laws right here. Right? In the meantime, spiritual Israel is starting to what? Worship the sun. And they're gonna, oh boy, they're gonna, and then the Sunday law hits. So, you know, putting all these together, we now know exactly what is going to happen. We are living right here. We're living right here, just before midnight. We know where all this falling away has been happening, right? And then we know that Islam is right here, Islam is right here, but Islam is also right here, right? Wow.
But you could see the trend of life now,
Mm-hmm.
the things that are happening, you know,
Mhm.
they can overlook.
Do you see that it has to be a perfect storm? In other words, all the conditions have to be right.
Yeah.
You have to have when Islam attacks, the economy goes down, and everything is in such chaos that you have to have a president who is dictatorial and can actually say that we have a martial law now, and we will change and now follow the papacy's plan, right? Everything has to happen, because if those things don't happen, it's like a house of cards. It doesn't fall yet, but when the house of cards is perfect, everything just falls into place.
It's being put in place already.
Right.
Yeah, everything really.
Everything has to fall into place, right? Okay. All right. So, when the man of sin is, when at the Last Supper, when there's a falling away of Judas, right? That's when, and that happens at midnight. Okay. There have been always and will be tares among the wheat. The foolish virgins with the wise. Those who have no oil in their vessels with their lamps. There was covetous Judas in the church Christ formed on earth. And there will be Judases in the church in every stage of our history. But because there are such, it does not do away with the fact that God has a church. So Judas is a what? He's a foolish virgin. And he's a what? He's a tares. And when are the tares, which is Judas, fall away and taken away? At midnight. Right? Right? Because the foolish virgins, what happened to them at midnight? They don't have oil, right? So Judas is bound off when the tares are bound off, right? So when the tares are bound off, because he's the foolish virgin, he's the tares. He is bound off. So that's the binding time for Judas. The binding time for Judas starts at midnight. Right, midnight. The virgins, they woke up, the foolish virgins, they woke up, they have no oil. That's Judas. Right? And that's midnight. Okay. The tares and the, we know this very well. The tares and the wheat are to grow together until the harvest. And the harvest is the end of probationary time. So probation for the priests starts at midnight, because the priests are the 12 disciples, right? The 12 disciples, they're the priests, right? And then after that, there's the binding off for Judas. There's then after that, between midnight cry to the Sunday law, that's the binding time for the Levites. And then after that, there's going to be the binding time for the Nethinims. So this is all probationary time. And probationary time starts at midnight. The end of probationary time, that's when the tares will be separated. We're very close.
Yes.
Right. We're very close. Yeah, very close. You know, you put this together, now it becomes clear. People say, oh, you know what? The wheat and the tares, they're going to go all the way until Sunday law. They're going to go all the way until Jesus comes. No. They go until midnight. That's when Judas is. You know, this right here. Ellen White tells us very, 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 very clearly. All right. Okay. Wow. Where are we? How are we with time? You know, I'll go a little bit into this, but we will now go back to Ezekiel. Because what does Ezekiel say about the destruction and the siege and the destruction of Jerusalem? Right? We kind of base this study on the signs, but also in the studies of the book of Ezekiel. Right? So we're going to go back to Ezekiel. We haven't touched Ezekiel for several weeks now, but we're going to go back to Ezekiel. All right? Now, Ezekiel 24. Again, in the 9th year, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, okay, right away, I'm going to ask you right here. Which do we use spring to spring or fall to fall? In the 9th year, in the 10th month, in the 10th month. It doesn't say Jehoiakim or a captivity. So this is spring to spring. This is spring to spring, right? So because Jehoiachin is actually fall to fall. So we're going to have to use spring to spring, okay? Right. In the 9th year of the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, write thee the name of the day, okay? So remember, Ezekiel is in Babylon. He doesn't know what's going on in Jerusalem. So he gets a vision. And God says, today, Babylon has set himself against Jerusalem. Right? And this is a parable for you. All right? Jerusalem is now being sieged by Babylon. All right? Because he's in Babylon. Because Jerusalem is now being sieged. He doesn't know it. He just gets a vision. All right? This is the parable. Thus saith the Lord God, set on a pot, set it and also pour water into it. Okay, I got a pot with water. Gather the pieces thereof into it, even every good piece, the thigh and the shoulder, and fill it with choice bones. Okay, you got bones in there. Right? You put in bones with a pot. And take the choice of the flock and burn also the bones under it. You burn it. And make it boil well, and let them seethe in the bones. Oh, okay, you boil it until it seethes, right? Until it becomes dry, right? And when is that? The 9th day of the 10th month, or the 10th day of the month of the 9th year, in the 9th year. So the 9th year is right here. The 10th day of the month, so the 10th day would be here towards the end. So it's the 10th day of the 10th month, that's the beginning of the siege, right? Because that's when Babylon is setting himself against Jerusalem. The beginning of the siege, all right? The beginning of the siege is when Jerusalem is actually being boiled. Wow. Like bones in a pot. Wherefore thus saith the Lord God, woe to the bloody city, the pot whose scum is therein, and whose scum is not gone out of it. Bring it out piece by piece, so let no lot fall upon it. For her blood is on the midst of her. She is set upon the top of a rock. Okay, now he's on top of a rock. You know, I had to make this make it look make it look real. Okay. She poured it not upon the ground to cover it with dust, that it might cause fury to come up to take vengeance. I have set her blood upon the top of the rock, and it shall not be covered. Therefore thus saith the Lord God, woe to the bloody city! I will even make the pile for fire great. Heap on wood, kindle fire, consume flesh, spice it well, and let the bones be burned. You burn it until the bones are burned. Then set it empty upon the coals thereof, and that the brass of it may be hot and may burn, and that the filthiness of it may be molten in it, that the scum of it may be consumed. You burn it until it's all dried up in there, and okay. What does this mean? Can you clean that pot anymore when you burn it like that? She hath wearied herself with lies, and her great scum went not forth out of her. Her scum shall be in the fire. In the filthiness is lewdness, because I have purged thee, and thou wast not purged. Thou shalt not be purged from the filthiness any more, till I have caused my fury to rest upon thee. The Lord has spoken it. It shall come to pass, and I will do it. I will not go back. Neither will I spare, neither will I repent. According to thy ways and according to thy doings shall they judge thee, says the Lord. What is this saying? This is it. It is all burnt. Even the pot is burnt. All the bones is already dried up and burnt. There's no going back. That's it. You have reached your end. Your cup of iniquity is full. You cannot go back anymore. I have given you so many years. So many years I've given you. I've given you so many chances, but you don't want to listen. This is it. It's full. No more. Right? And you continue it. Also the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, behold, I take away from thee the desire of thine eyes with a stroke. What is he talking about now? Yet neither shalt thou mourn nor weep. Now Jerusalem is being burned on a pot. There's no more turning back. The probation of Jerusalem is finished. Right? But what do you have to do? You cannot mourn nor weep. Neither shall thy tears run down. Forbear to cry. Make no mourning for the dead. Don't even cry for Jerusalem. Bind the tire of thine head unto thee, and put on thy shoes upon thy feet, and cover not thy lips, and eat not the bread of men. Do not be comforted by men. Okay? So I spake in the people in the morning, and at even my wife died. So when Jerusalem was sieged, what happened to Ezekiel's wife?
He died.
Ezekiel's wife died.
The church died.
Ezekiel's wife died. The woman died. Right? What did Ezekiel have to do? Cannot mourn for the church, because the church is over. Done. It's like a pot of scum that is already burned and cannot be returned back. Cannot be cleaned anymore. Right? Cannot be returned anymore. And when was that? At the siege. So Jerusalem is dead. The woman is dead. The city is dead. And the church is dead. Right? So that's at the siege. Right? And the siege at midnight cry. And you continue. And the people said unto me, Wilt thou not tell us what these things are to us? They said, what does this mean? How come your wife dies and you cannot cry for it? And remember they're in Babylon, right? They're in Babylon. These things are happening in Jerusalem, but his wife is in Babylon, and she died. Then I answered to them, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Speak unto the house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will profane my sanctuary. I will profane my sanctuary, the excellency of your strength. My sanctuary is the excellency of your strength. The excellency of your strength is the same word that is translated as in Leviticus 26 as the pride of your power. In Leviticus 26, it says, the pride of your power I will break. And when the pride of your power I break is because the pride of your power is your government, is your king. My church, my temple should have been the excellency of your strength. But now you put your trust in the king. Because of that, your pride of your power, your king is broken. I'm going to break your king, right? Yeah. Because you don't put your trust and power in me, right? Because I used to be your king. And starting with Saul, they wanted a king like the heathens. So they put their power, their strength in who? The king. They don't put it in God anymore. That's why I'm going to break you. Because it used to be my sanctuary. That my sanctuary is my presence, right? The excellency of my strength, your strength, the desire of your eyes, and that which your soul pitieth, and your sons and daughters whom ye have left shall fall by the sword. And ye shall do as I have done. Ye shall not cover your lips nor eat bread of men. See, you're not going to mourn. Your tires shall be upon your heads, and your shoes upon your feet. You shall not mourn your weep. Your tires is like your. They have kind of like an apron, right? An apron. It used to be around your loin, and when you gird your loins, it makes you stand up straight. Right? When you gird your loin, you stand up straight. Now it's not longer around here; it's around your head. So now you can't stand up straight anymore. You pine away for iniquities and mourn one toward another. Now, so now you're not mourning for your wife, and you're not mourning for the city. Thus Ezekiel is unto you a sign. Now this is a sign, okay? This is a sign, right? Remember, this is a sign. According to all that he has done shall ye do. And when this cometh, ye shall know that I am the Lord. Okay, there's going to be sign that comes. Also, thou son of man, shall it not be in the day when I take from them their strength, the joy of their glory, the desire of their eyes, and that whereupon they set their minds, their sons and their daughters. The joy of the desire of their eye is their wife, right? That wife died. That he that escapeth in that day shall come unto thee, to cause thee to hear it with thine ears. In that day shall thy mouth be opened to him which is escaped, and thou shalt speak, and be no more dumb, and that thou shalt be a sign unto them, and they shall know that I am the Lord. Okay, all right. So he's in Babylon. His wife dies, and in Jerusalem the city is now is sieged, and the end of probation is done for the city. And his wife dies, the end of the church is done, right? And what happens? He cannot mourn, right? When he cannot mourn until there's going to be somebody that escapes out of Jerusalem, out of that destruction, and comes to see him, to meet him, right? And speak to him directly. Right? So somebody is going to escape from Jerusalem, from the destruction, and speak to him. At that time, he will no longer be dumb. He can now speak.
So he became dumb.
When, at the time of the destruction, at the time of the siege, after the destruction, somebody is going to escape from Jerusalem. And, okay, what does this mean? Do you see something there? Hmm? Not yet? Okay. The sign of the destruction of Jerusalem lines up with our time at what?
Midnight.
No, Sunday law.
Oh, Sunday law.
The siege starts at midnight cry, right?
But the destruction.
The destruction. At the destruction, somebody is going to escape. Daniel 11, verse 41. Who's going to escape the hand of the papacy? When? At the Sunday law. Edom, Moab, and the chief. At the chief of the Ammon, right? Edom, Moab, and the head, yeah, right. The first fruits.
Are they the late converts?
They're the Nethinims with the Gentiles. The Gentiles, they're going to come in from the outside, right? These are the Gentiles who's going to escape, right? When these Gentiles come and you're going to meet them, then you're no longer going to be dumb.
So you're going to give them something.
They're going to, yeah, then you're going to give the message,
Makes sense.
right? Yeah, because this is Daniel. So when you're reading Ezekiel, before I had no clue. What is this talking about? I had no clue. Now you can connect it together. But remember, the church is dead already at midnight cry, and America is also dead. It's going to fall because they both fall at Sunday law, right? Their probation closes at Sunday law, right? But they're already dead at midnight cry. Wow. Okay. Now this is a, oh yeah.
They're dead at midnight cry. So, in the present time, when do you think will be that period?
Midnight cry? Yeah. Midnight cry is midnight and midnight cry is very close by together, right? Because at midnight, a midnight cry was given. But when you look at it very closely in a microscope, there are two events, right? First midnight, and then there's going to be a midnight cry. It's a very close event, right? Yeah. And these are the things that we study, that these are actually two different events. But where it's so close together that it seems like it may be one event. So it's almost like a 2 points in time, but there's also, it's like a period in time. But it's like a period in time, but it's also a point in time. But that's when the 10 virgins, they come at midnight, and the midnight cry was given. This actually very close together, but they're actually two different events, right? Yeah, two different events. Yeah. So, and then when they will have to go to the door.
Actually, inside the church.
No.
What is in church?
No, we're outside.
Outside the church.
Outside.
Yeah.
We are lingering outside the church, right? We're lingering outside the church, right? Yeah, because we don't want to be contaminated with the Roman standards, right? Right. Yeah. Okay. Remember this? We go back all the way to Ezekiel 3. This is so many weeks ago, and this was the vision in the plain, right? The vision in the plain, right? This was a prophecy. The vision in the plain was said, "But thou, son of man, behold, they shall put bands upon thee, and they shall bind thee with them, and thou shalt not go out among them. And I will make thy tongue cleave to the roof of thy mouth, and thou shalt be dumb, and shall not be unto them a reprover." See? For they are a rebellious house. So now you cannot prophesy for Jerusalem anymore. Right? So you cannot prophesy in Jerusalem. When you are dumb at midnight cry, when Jerusalem falls, and you cannot no longer reprove them, you cannot prophesy for Jerusalem anymore. Right? But when I speak to thee, I will open thy mouth, and thou shalt say unto them, Thus saith the Lord, He that heareth, let him hear, and he that forbeareth, let him forbear, and they are a rebellious house. But there's going to be a time when I will make you no longer dumb, and you can start speaking. And when does this happen? When the refugee, when the refugee escapes, then you will no longer dumb. Okay? See, this is Ezekiel 3 was the prophecy of that. Remember? So at midnight cry, when the siege starts, you cannot prophesy for Jerusalem. Yeah. But wait a minute. Yeah. But then what do you do? Okay. What do you do? I got to keep going. I can't stop here because... so if you're not prophesying for Jerusalem and you're made dumb, it's really dumb towards Jerusalem because you cannot prophesy for Jerusalem anymore. Who are you prophesying? So what do? Now you go to Ezekiel 25. You keep reading Ezekiel 25. Then the word of the Lord came to see, Son of man, set thy face against Ammon and now you prophesy for the Ammonites. So now you prophesy to the Gentiles, right? Right. And what do you else? Who else do you prophesy? I'm not going to read the whole thing. You for the Moab. What is Seir? Seir is Edom. Moab, Edom, and Ammon. So this is the stick of the Gentiles, right? Coming together. When? Midnight cry. So you don't prophesy to the Israel, you now prophesy to the Gentiles. This is when you do your public evangelism, right? You don't prophesy to the Gentiles now. No. You prophesy to them when you are lifted up as an ensign, right? You're lifted up as an ensign when you are a perfect witness. Then you prophesy to Edom, Moab, and Ammon. And when Edom, Moab, and Ammon, they hear that prophecy and Sunday law comes, some of them will escape. And when they escape, then you can start prophesying. All right. That's exactly. exactly what's going to happen now. Because now we are not to, who are we to prophesy to now? To our own families. To our own families, right? We have to prophesy to Israel right now.
But
Right.
when does that end? Midnight cry?
At midnight cry. Right. Midnight cry when it ends. It ends at,
It starts at 9/11.
it starts at 9/11. Right.
Okay.
Because we have to give the message to our,
And that's the message given to spiritual Israel.
that's right. So the thing is like, just like when Ezra 7:9. Ezra 7:9, Ezra was coming out of Babylon. When he came out of Babylon, he says, wait a minute. There's only priests here. We cannot have a what without Levites. What did he do? He go back to Babylon and call the Levites out of Babylon so they can join us. So where was he? He was outside of Babylon calling the Levites to join him. So this is what we are doing. Right now, we are calling the Levites, right? We're not preaching to the world, because when do we preach to the world? At midnight cry, when we can no longer prophesy to Israel, because their probation is closed, right? They have closed their own, they're gonna close their own probation, right? It's a progression. It's a progression. It starts at midnight cry, and the last Seventh-day Adventists will finish at Sunday law. After that, no more, right? Right? Because it's a progression. Okay, so now you're prophesying to Edom, Moab, and Ammon, and the Philistines, right? Now I'm going to see where I'm going to find an ending point here sometime. Right. Okay. Okay. All right. I think I have to end there, because this is going to go a little bit more. Yeah, this is going to go into a little bit more. I have to end this right here. Man, I can't finish this here. I still got, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks.
The Ammonites and Edomites, so
Right.
leave that there.
Yeah, Edom, Moab, and Ammon, right?
There's a lot of things in there.
Yeah. So yeah. So the conclusion,
Summarize a little bit.
so why don't you throw out what your summary is? What have you learned today? Yeah.
And what's the main point?
The main points. Wow. The main points is Abomination of Desolation. We know the Abomination of Desolation. That comes at midnight cry. Midnight cry, right?
And when it's revealed.
That's when the corrector of heretics is being given the power to pluck out those who don't believe in the idolatrous standards of Rome, right? So that the man of sin is starting to be revealed at that time. He's fully revealed at the Sunday law, because that's when he will say that you can no longer by law keep the Sabbath, right? At midnight cry, he's going to start making Sunday laws, but it's not enforceable, right? By law, right? But before that time, there's already a falling away, and we're already seeing this falling away with so many idolatrous standards. It's in the church right now, right? Yeah. So what are we doing? We have to be lingering outside, calling our brethren, come out of confusion and error, right? Come out of confusion and error, because you do not want to get caught in the destruction, right? That is going to come. Right. And then we know that destruction, the pot of scum is going to have no return anymore at midnight cry, right? And that's when the wife dies. And the thing is that you can no longer cry for them anymore. You can no longer call them anymore. At midnight cry, you cannot prophesy for them anymore, because now your job is not to them. Their door is closed. Who do you have to prophesy to? You have to the people from outside, the Nethinims, Edom, Moab, and Ammon. You prophesy unto them until they can escape. When they escape, then you can prophesy to the whole world. Now we will see. It will show us who is it, the whole world you're going to prophesy to. Wow, this Ezekiel is so interesting. It tells you exactly what's going to happen at the end time. We do not have to be confused as to what is going to happen. We know exactly. Putting all those lines together, we know that Islam is going to start making a bomb that's going to destroy the walls of America pretty soon at midnight cry. And that is a perfect timing for the house of cards to fall, right? And crush the foot of Balaam, the false prophet, right? Right at...
That will not be long, I guess.
Yeah. So that's going to be... That's...
24, 25, and 26 is the main one.
Oh yeah, it still goes all the way to 46, 47, but we'll pick up the highlights of it. We'll still continue with Ezekiel, then there's some more signs, and hopefully we can finish next week. And that is the more sure word of prophecy. That's the more sure word of prophecy. Okay. My sister Cora in California has a question. I just realized. I'm sorry, Cora. She was asking, okay, the wheat and the tares. So when is it that the chaff is revealed?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
Ooh, that's a good question. We never mentioned the chaff.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did wheat and the tares.
Yeah, that has to be before that has to be before midnight cry.
Isn't it different between the priests and then the Levites? And when you're talking in that sense, it's before.
Because the tares are already bound for to be faggots of fire, and that's at midnight. So the chaff has to be revealed before. Yeah. And the chaff comes from the wheat. So even for the wheat, they are already starting to be revealed that some of them are going to be wheat and some of them are going to be chaff. Chaff is going to be. So before midnight.
Isn't it in the context of...
Right now, there's going to be, because when we actually look at now, there's so many different kinds of people who have all kinds of different present truths. Right?
No,
There's so many different.
If you're talking about present truth, then you're talking about chaff and wheat.
Yeah, that's why. This is right now.
Priests. And then the Levites too is like...
No, they're not. They're different. We're talking about the wheat and the chaff. That's among the priests. So this is still within present truth. So even those who are actually the wise virgins, they're still going to be sifted out. There's going to be shifting out because there's going to be winds of doctrine that's going to change, and we are seeing this now because there's so many different kinds of present truth now. And those who are not going line upon line, precept upon precept, sticking to the foundation and sticking to what is written, is going to be blown away by the winds of doctrine, right? And that happens between 9/11 and midnight, actually. The chaff is done before midnight.
Because even if these people call themselves groups who call themselves Christians, but there's still some separation.
Oh yeah, that's the chaff. Yeah, the chaff is being separated even between 9/11 and midnight. Oh, thank you, Cora. That's a good question. Yeah, it definitely does not happen after midnight because midnight, that's already, midnight you already have all the oil, right?
Yeah.
All the oil, and you're not going to get any more oil. You have the perfect truth already, right? Yeah. Their binding off will start then. Yeah, after between midnight and midnight cry, they have a very short time to. They have to decide right then. Are they going to stay? Are they going to join? Those who are still in the nominal church will have to decide. Are they going to stay or are they going to join? Very short time. Okay. All right. Thank you, Cora.